Hey y'all, hope you're doing well today. So, in today's message, we're going to be talking about a little superstition from this book here, and we're going to use it for inspiration to see how truth can be found in very different areas, and that finding truth when you are on the truth seeking path in these little seemingly unrelated ways, right? Like on the micro level, when we can search with an earnest heart, which the Bible talks about, right? We can in fact find answers that sometimes I think we would have never found any other way, and it's a beautiful thing to experience. And so I hope that you enjoy the message today. So if you have the book, and again, this is the Book of Superstitions by Shelby L. Otmani. I hope I'm saying that right. It's a fun little book to flip through. But if you have the book, we're going to take a look at page 143. And this is going to be a little superstition from the Philippines. I'm going to read a little excerpt for you. It says, "I think we can all agree that funerals and wakes are utterly exhausting. Whether you're actively grieving the death of a loved one or trying to console those left behind, these services can take a lot out of you, physically, emotionally, and financially. By the end, all you want to do is go home and lie down, not head out to a bar or a restaurant. But in the Philippines, a post-wake pit stop is a necessity if you want to keep death out of your own home. The belief that you shouldn't go straight home after a service is called pagpag, and claims that the only way to prevent the dead from following you home is by stopping somewhere, anywhere, before you return home. A Tagalog word that literally translates to shaking off dust or dirt. Pagpag is quite literally the practice of shaking off death and bad energy that may have tried to hitch a ride back to your place after the funeral." So I thought that was really interesting. And so I just thought, to me, I love the illustrations in this book. It's just really cool. It's very creative. It's like every piece of it was well thought out. And I thought, the whole process of story making, the whole process of superstitions that are told in a way that just registers, in our mind and can be remembered and passed down through generations. It's like, I view this almost as like a form of storytelling, and while I think in the past, I'm thinking of myself, like maybe 20 years ago or so, I probably would have not given quite the same amount of credibility to superstitions. And I think a lot of us are that way. But it's kind of like folklore and legends and fairy tales and things like that, where, there's debate over, how much truth they actually contain. And whether it's, these things are, true accounts cloaked in a fictional story, or whether they are based on true events, or whether they are truly derived from the imagination, which we can understand that the imagination is full of archetypes that reside in our unconscious, right? What Carl Jung would have called, or Jung, I've heard it pronounced different ways, the collective unconscious, right? So we have symbolism that resides in some other realm that we are all tapped into. If you are a spiritual person, you may view it from that perspective, right? Maybe within this one spirit that we share, call it the collective unconscious, call it the Holy Spirit, whatever it is. A lot of times when we have revelations, and they seem to come out of nowhere. On one hand, it could be our mind trying to work out and solve a problem, right? But on the other hand, it could be an answered prayer or a miracle. And just to, I won't take too big of a tangent here, but I do want to mention a video. I'm going to drop a link down in the description because I was talking about that right there. And that is Sam Vaknin's video I saw, I believe it was yesterday. He was talking about cognitive blocks that we have and distortions and emotions the role of our emotions in this process, how they affect our cognition and blocks, revelations, intuition, where does that fit in, the difference between that and instinct. It was just really, really deep and rich and interesting. So I'm going to drop a link to that video in the description. But again, whether this is just flat out, talking about legends and myths and fairy tales and all this, right? Superstitions. It's kind of like, where did these originate? Where? Did someone literally pull all of this out of thin air or not? Because to me, they stick with us because they resonate with us on some level. They ring true. They have power. Nothing's going to have power over you unless I feel like there has to be an element of attachment. And the attachment piece can be conscious or unconscious on our behalf, right? And then again, you have the spiritual element. But it's kind of like belief. It's kind of like faith, if you want to translate this over into the Christian belief system. It's like, the Bible says whatsoever, things you ask, believe that you'll receive it, with all your heart. If you shall not doubt, you shall have these things, even moving a mountain. So, it's kind of like that. And that's why I'm kind of, I think the word is leery. I feel weary. I always get those two words confused, leery and weary. It's like I'm pretty tired right now. So I think that's weary, but I'm pretty leery of, exposing myself to this kind of stuff now that I'm older. Not because I'm afraid of, the dark side or whatever, but it's more so for me that I understand the power of belief. It's like whatever you focus on, and if you put the energy of fear behind it, well, that's not good, And so I feel like I've come to a place of power within myself where I don't really pay attention to, so much to what other people believe or what they say, And so if you feel like hearing something like this might affect you, then I certainly don't want you to be affected in any way. But I have a great and positive message for you, I feel like. And so, yes. So that was a really interesting superstition. And we're certainly going to be looking through the lens of spirituality where it says this word, pag, it's a Tagalog word, right, from the language spoken in the Philippines. And it literally translates to shaking off the dust or dirt. And so we're going to be preventing death from following you. So we're going to be looking at the concept of death energetically, right? And so, like when the Bible talks about let the dead bury the dead, right? Okay. So looking at the etymology of pag, P-A-G, it actually means to fasten or to make fast. All right. So then when you look up the etymology of fast, it means firmly fixed, steadfast, constant, secure, and enclosed. And I thought, that sounds good. That sounds strong, like a fortress, like surrounding yourself in that armor of God, right? This ring of power that you are secured behind, like in a fortress. So, spiritually. And then in looking a little bit further, I found that in the Philippines, pag can also mean the leftover food thrown out from restaurants. Scavenged, that's then scavenged from garbage sites and dumps. So it's like dumpster diving for food. So how interesting. So there's this same element of decay. It's I don't know why it just fits for me through my lens to look at the darkness. If I want to apply a spiritual term to the darkness, I like to think of it like as not so much the spirit of death, which it is, right? Because the Bible tells us, that it's the dark side, the devil has come or comes to kill, steal, and destroy, right? So it is a spirit of death, but there's something about, I guess it's when you go through deception that lasts a long time and it's done in a covert way, and you are consistently on the decline mentally and physically and emotionally, and everything's just kind of, it's a slow process. It's this slow process of erosion, and it's very cunning in that manner. So that's why I relate it to a spirit of decay, So it's kind of like when you're faced with it every day, you may not catch the impact. But a person who, has a peek at it one day and then leaves and then comes back 3 or 4 weeks later, to see the effects of the spirit of decay on a person who's being psychologically, abused or whatever it is, they're going to see a huge difference in the impact that is being made on this person. You see what I'm saying? So both of these things, pag, meaning food that's, thrown out, right, into the dumpster, but that is then scavenged, right? As well as making sure that you take precautions to prevent this spirit from attaching to you, right? It's kind of like you were around it, but then you left, just like when the food's thrown out, but then, you don't want it to come back to you. So they're very similar to me, but let's look a little bit deeper here. So, pag is a noun and a verb. It can be discarded food or an action taken, shaking off the dust or dirt. Something discarded or an act of discarding or doing away with, right? You want to get rid of the bad energy that you were just around. So it's related to discarding, okay? So if we look at the we've already done that. So if you think about all of this collectively, it's like, again, you find unexpected revelations, right? That come about, that pop up from contemplating these seemingly unrelated concepts. And I just want to remind you again, the Bible tells us to let the dead bury the dead. So in Hindi, pag actually means a foot or a footstep or a pace, which is interesting, right? And then let me just add this last little definition from Tagalog.com. Pag is an alternate spelling of kapag, K-A-P-A-G, which means when. It says often for future or potential events. So when you look at, this tradition of leaving a funeral or a wake in the Philippines and stopping somewhere else to prevent this dark energy from following you home, I think that's certainly related to this other use of the word here, right? Something to do with, there's an element of waiting or potential or this expectation related to pag or kapag, meaning when, if and when, whenever, or often for future or potential events. So check this out. In physiology, pag also means, or it's short for, the periaqueductal gray or the central gray. It's a brain region that plays a critical role in autonomic function, motivated behavior, and behavioral responses to threatening stimuli. So, furthermore, PAG is also the primary control center for descending pain modulation, which we're going to take a look at. So, and that essentially means descending pain modulation is communication between your brain and your body. Like if you get injured, it's the signals that are sent through your nervous system to the brain to register like ouch, that hurt. You know what I mean? And then like sending that back. So it's the communication that runs the errand of what happened, taking what happened to your brain, and then responding by you feeling, it registers with you as, you feel pain. So, but it's what makes us register an injury as pain, and that's why, because there's this communication process going, that's why they can insert blocks. You may have heard of spinal blocks, or I don't know if they can put them in different areas of your body, but they block the pain signals in that communication inside your body, and that provides you with relief. You perceive that just because you don't have the pain. The pain doesn't register, So we're finding, your block is about discarding. It's about blocking something painful or destructive. And we're going to look a little bit further, but we're starting to find or see some micro truth from the greater macro design. Again, it's like just fractals that we're looking at, that we're examining of the divine design, the greater design, right, of our reality. And just a side note, I think there are people who actually have a condition just on their own where their body doesn't register pain, and that can be a very dangerous thing, right? But in the psychological version of this, right, people who don't register something in their mind as painful or bad, right, or moral or immoral, right, regarding themselves or others, sometimes we label these people as, having this extreme disorder, like psychopaths, right, or some kind of path. It's kind of like we view this as something that's extreme, okay? And in so doing, we exclude these mechanics from having anything to do with us, It's that whole, just a total rejection, okay? It's like there's no way, that we could be, there's a term, I don't know how to pronounce it, anesthetizing. Anesthesia is what I'm thinking of, right? So it's like you can kind of like apply that to yourself, right? Psychologically, that's what people who don't have a conscience do. It's like they're just numb in the area of a conscience, and we think that there's no way we do that, but are we so sure? Because I feel like it's a spectrum. I think that pain is unpleasant for all of us. It doesn't matter who you are. You don't have to have a label, and I think sometimes we are not even conscious of things that we do to mediate pain, So again, it's that gray area, where we, if we're strong enough to examine it, we begin to see the truth. But the catch is you have to be strong enough to truly see it in yourself. So my thought is that the subconscious is hard at work in all of us to some degree to distract us from hard truths, because psychologically we couldn't handle them. Okay, so just like in physiology with PAG, I think that also in psychology, in the psyche, there's this communication that there's blockages that pop up in our mind too, right? We don't want to register something as, there's dissociation. People who go through an extreme trauma, they can totally dissociate and literally not have a conscious memory of the event. We've talked about it before. It's incredible what the mind can do, the acrobatics. And so I mentioned Sam's video earlier where he was talking about cognitive blocks, right? And distortions and all this, and the role of our emotions in those things, right? Where do they fit in? How do they affect all that? And so I was watching his video, and of course that got my wheels turning, which I like. And I started to think about emotions acting as blockages to hard truths. I've got that t-shirt that I've shared with y'all before that says emotions distort reality, and they do. They make things cloudy or foggy. They get in the way. You can't just go from A to B. You got to be like on this grand voyage all around, up and down, or on this roller coaster. It's like, you guys have seen that meme where it's like, my plan's like this, like a straight line, and God's plan is like this, It's kind of like that. And so, but emotions, I believe, definitely play a part in our ability to truly see things clearly, and I'm going to prove that, hopefully, by sharing this with you. So, in ancient cultures, emotions were actually elevated to godlike status in the legends. And literally, like with the Greek gods, I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. There was a Greek goddess, Lyssa, Lyssa. She was the spirit of mad rage, frenzy. And then there was the Greek god of Phthonos, Phthonos, who was the god of jealousy and envy. And then we have the Greek god of Eros, Eros, who is the god of passion and love or desire. And so we know, and again, that's a great example for the phrase of, love is blind. So we know that emotions can totally skew our subjective reality. And, but to the degree that we have these ancient cultures that acknowledged it, by elevating emotions to godlike status, preserved in legend and myth. I mean, that's a big deal. And so if you think about it now, with that in the forefront of your mind, take a look at the first commandment from the Bible, okay? And that is, you shall have no other gods before me. Remember, we're instructed in the Bible, it says, wisdom is the principal thing, and with all you're getting, get understanding. Well, we can't if emotions are in the way. See? So, if you think about it, emotions really can rule us. They can rule over us, okay? They can be so intense that they can feel like they have the power of ownership or possession of us. In fact, the word demon, Daemon, means, in ancient Greek belief, a divinity or supernatural being of a nature between gods and humans, and an inner attendant spirit or inspiring force. So there was sort of this correlation or marriage between emotions and supernatural beings, gods and goddesses, right? As well as spiritual beings that served the role of an inner attendant that influences us and leads and guides us. See? So, that hopefully that gives you some new perspective. It did for me, looking at that first commandment, that we shall have no other gods before, our Creator. And so, again, I'm just reminded that we are told we are vessels. So let's take a look at Matthew chapter 12, verses 43 through 45. It says, when the unclean spirit is gone out of a man, he walketh through dry places, seeking rest, and findeth none. Then he saith, I will return into my house. That's, a person's body, right? I will return into my house from whence I came out. And when he is come, he findeth it empty, swept, and garnished. Then goeth he and taketh with himself 7 other spirits, more wicked than himself, and they enter in and dwell there. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. I would guess so. Even so shall it be also unto this wicked generation. So, yeah. Okay, so back to PAG, and physiology, okay? So with pain modulation, there's a way to prevent it, right? Because we're preventing the nerves, the communication that's happening in the nervous system from registering the pain. They say this is prevented through the gate control theory, okay? Which is related to the development of the TENS machines. You may have heard of those, right? They actually provide like these electrical charges, and you, I guess, strap it or tape it to your body, and it just kind of charges, stimulates, your muscles, and it's supposed to be a form of pain relief. So we're gonna look at this as one side of the greater truth, one little small clue or element or piece of a greater truth that's reflected no matter which direction you look at it, okay? So just keep this in mind, that the stimulation can prevent pain, okay? And the reason this can happen is because the nerves are already busy with input. See? So just like the verses I just read to you, the only reason that impure spirit can come back into that person's body is because it's empty. Okay, it's not already busy with another spirit there. The Holy Spirit isn't in there, right? That's the only reason they can come back and enter into that body, because it's not already filled, okay? So with the nerve stimulation, it's keeping the nervous system busy. It's already busy with input. So this is right in alignment with the old saying, it's idle hands are the devil's workshop, which I actually didn't know was a Bible verse. I thought it was literally an old saying, but it's from Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 27. So, again, this all makes sense, right? So whether we are active, conscious participants or not, we understand, and this can be proven in academia, and different tests, but we understand that there's always activity in the mind, even when we're sleeping, with dreams, and there's just always activity. So the more we learn about the mechanics of our mind, the more we'll understand them and appreciate them, okay? In other words, instead of self-conviction over doing or not doing something, or feeling like we should have known better, it's like we'll see that all along things were working. Here's the catch. If they weren't working in your favor, okay, before you reached a certain level of conscious awareness, if things just didn't bring you to a great point in life, then it's an opportunity. This is the way I see it. It's an opportunity to evaluate what inner attendant might have been sabotaging you that you were unaware of, because you didn't consciously put a good attendant in there. You see what I'm saying? So at this point, that's good. This revelation is good, because now we can make a conscious effort, okay, to intervene and change direction on purpose, consciously, with intention. Now, if things, while you were asleep, naive, whatever you want to say, unaware, if things were working in your favor, and you know this because somehow you were brought to a great place, and you're like, thank God, okay? So if they were working in your favor, then you may realize that all along when you were praying for God's help and He seemed silent, He actually wasn't, okay? And this kind of thing can strengthen your faith. So, yeah. And He can work through us subconsciously to get us into a good situation or out of a bad one. Because when things fall apart, I feel like our first response is typically one that comes from ego. It's a victimhood kind of, just a feeling really bad about how things fell apart kind of response, until we step back and we realize what we were saved from, or the potential danger we were in, right? Sometimes we get the proof after the fact, but God can work again in that manner to build up and create, as well as to destroy. That destructive spirit can be from God, but for a good purpose, right? Because He loves us. So Again, it's why sometimes things fall apart and we're devastated at first until we discover the details, and then we're immensely grateful. So, to become fastened, pag, right? To fasten, to make fast. To become fastened, steadfast, secured. Sometimes it means pain modulation, consciously, through uplifting or good stimuli. Okay? Right? Inspiration, or through unconscious coping mechanisms that sabotage progress in your life. And the silver lining in this kind of situation is this. It's because maybe God knew that you weren't ready for that next stage yet, you know? So any period in your time where you feel like it was lost time, you know, maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't. So again, what does it mean to become fastened, steadfast, secured? Sometimes it means intentionally shaking off the dust or dirt energetically, right? Taking your emotional and spiritual reins consciously and rejecting or rebuking negativity that you just came in contact with. Sometimes it means digging up memories that you had previously trashed and finding value in them, right? Going dumpster diving, you know, looking back over memories that were very impactful, times in your life that were very impactful, that were hard for you to, you know, to sit with in the past, but maybe you have come to a place of healing where you can actually reflect, but it's for the purposes of learning, you know, because the emotions are out of the way now. So now the puzzle pieces can actually go together, see. Sometimes we reassess these old memories, right? Or we marinate in them, or we cook them, just like the food that's pulled out of the dumpster and cooked, you know, with that word, pag, right? And doing this can certainly provide us with clarity or comfort even, right? So it's mental or spiritual food. So there are many avenues to becoming fastened. When you finally learn to stay aware and on guard, no one can weasel it out of your grasp again. So Merriam-Webster defines fasten as to secure against opening, to fix or set steadily, to focus attention. So it sounds like a fortress to me, doesn't it? It's like secured and on guard, right? With strong boundaries. Okay, because there's value there in that fortress. Okay, it's about taking ownership of ourselves as a temple, a vessel, a fortress, right? So when we do this for ourselves, our house isn't vacant. Emotions are welcome visitors, okay, but they're just passing through. We observe people and their input out here, okay, and we choose carefully who we open the gate for and let in here. Since wisdom is the principal thing, it will have a chance at manifesting into beautiful outcomes in our life when we realize we are worth understanding, protecting, and defending ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So, you know, if you think about the concept of fasting, okay, spiritually, we can fast to fasten. So, through that lens, I would ask you, what can you give up to receive? Do you need to clean your house of some things? Like self-blame or shame, doubt, strongholds from normalizing abuse, right? Because you had nothing for context. People who only offer negativity or who encourage you to stay stuck. You know, sometimes people do that. They want to act as that block. They want to keep you comfortable in that way, see. Our nerves in our body serve a purpose. They're messengers. A blockage should be the last resort, I feel like, because again, if you can't feel pain, that's a dangerous thing. But it's the same thing with growth in our lives and transformation. So these people who want us to stay stuck, a lot of times they just really make things comfortable for us, okay? And they do this because they don't want to lose you. So they might keep you stuck in self-defeating mindsets or behaviors. They might keep you actively engaged in some kind of addiction instead of helping you because they don't want you to move on and leave them behind, okay? So another thing is some people are too lazy to grow, right? They're just too lazy, and they want you to stay stuck with them and never advance in life, right? And then another reason people want you to stay stuck is so that they can use you or gain from you in some way. So let me leave you with this analogy, this visualization. This always helps me. Think about packing for a trip with a lot of stuff, okay? If there's too much stuff, you can't close your suitcase, okay? You can't secure it. Everything's going to be, sticking out of it. So, again, to fast is giving up, right? Typically thought of as giving up food, but it's a spiritual offering. And when combined with prayer, you're in a state of expectant faith. Okay? So again, to make fast is to secure. What do you need to do to walk securely in faith? So I hope you enjoyed the message today. I hope it got the wheels turning. I hope it was inspiring for you. I hope it gave you some new perspectives. And, new perspectives sometimes can help us to put some, connect some dots, put some puzzle pieces together. And I hope that it did that for you. And I hope that you feel empowered. And I just thank you so much for coming along to hear the message. I hope that you have a beautiful day. And I'll see you again very soon.